what's up guys, it's VITA3K here. In today's video, I'll be talking about how to set up a PlayStation Vita emulator on your Android devices in 2025. I'll be showing you guys the full setup, best settings and even gameplay test of games like God of War as well as Uncharted. But before getting started, let me talk about minimum requirements. You will need at least Snapdragon 4 Gen 1 processor or above. Along with that, Android version 9 or above. These are the only minimum requirements. You can also run the PS Vita emulator if you have at least 4 to 6 GB of RAM. With that being said, let's get started. For today's video, we'll be using the official VITA3K Android, which is the first PS Vita emulator for Android devices. This is a completely open source and official project. The version of VITA3K Android which we'll be using in today's video is going to be the official version 12. You'll be able to see some of the changelog. It has a lot of internal improvements and bug fixes. With that being said, let's start setting up this emulator on our Android device. I have already added it right here. Let's open it, and when you open it for the first time, you'll need to complete a small setup. So here we go, we'll need to select our language. Afterwards, select the path for the emulator. For example, you can use the default path, doesn't really matter. I'll tap on the next button. The next step will be to import the firmware as well as font package. Now it is pretty self-explanatory. I'll just go ahead and import both of them and I'll be back. Once the firmware has been imported, you can change the interface settings. For example, if you like grid games, then you can also set the grid mode layout. Afterwards, tap on the next button and then tap on the OK button. Here we go, welcome to VITA3K. Afterwards, make sure to untick this option, then tap on the close button. Now we can create a user. So let's set it as user 1, then tap on the confirm button. And here we go, we have successfully logged into our PS Vita emulator. Now if you are facing issues like emulator crashing while importing firmware, then you will need to manually import firmware by tapping on this button and then choosing the first option multiple times, and then only all of the stuff will be loaded, as you will be able to see in the background, wallpaper, etc. The next step will be the most important step in the VITA3K Android. You can tap on the file button once again to start importing your own copies of PS Vita games inside this emulator. Now VITA3K Android supports multiple formats, so you'll need to import according to the format of your game. I usually go with the third option, and you guys will be able to see I have already imported Uncharted Golden Abyss. Now let me just go ahead and import God of War as well, and I'll be back. And there we go guys, my game has been successfully imported. Just take a look at this. Now let me explain some of the icons which you will be able to see in circle. So green circle means that the game is pretty well compatible on Android devices and you won't face any performance issues, whereas orange means that you will face lagging issues. Red circle means that the game is incompatible or has some troubles like crashing issues, etc. Anyways, let's tap on configuration, afterwards settings, and you will be able to see there are a lot of settings in VITA3K Android. So let's start with the best settings of VITA3K Android. In terms of CPU settings, make sure to keep it as default. CPU backend should be dynamic. In terms of GPU, you can set the backend renderer as Vulkan if you are using Android version 10 or above. This is usually recommended as it provides you very amazing performance. But if you are using below Android 10, then you can go with OpenGL. In terms of GPU, here you will be able to import your custom graphics driver as well. For better performance, this is highly recommended. For today's video, I'll be using the Mesa Turnip Adreno driver version 25.0.0 revision 5. So here I have successfully imported it, and you guys will be able to see my Turnip graphics driver is present, and you will need to reboot to apply the graphics driver or else it will not work. And the most important setting is right here, internal resolution upscaling. Now basically what you can do is downscale your game's graphics by up to 0.75x to get better performance on low-end or high-end Android devices, doesn't really matter. On the contrary, you can also upscale all the way up to 8 times, which is overkill. No game will be able to run on your Android device at 8x internal upscale resolution. Generally, I recommend you guys to keep it at 1x or 1.5x internal resolution. Once that has been done, you can also turn on FPS option, which will allow some games running at 30 FPS to run at 60 FPS. Also make sure to enable turbo mode, which will make sure that emulator will work at full potential. Once that has been done, you can simply tap on the save button to save all the following settings. Other than that, you also can change the emulator settings like performance overlay, which I highly recommend if you want to check out the FPS bar at the top left corner. So I'll set it to medium performance overlay details. Afterwards, tap on the save button once again. In terms of GUI, you will be able to change the UI or interface of the emulator by selecting either grid mode or non-grid mode. So you guys will be able to see I can change the icon size, etc. It looks better with the grid mode. Anyways, now that we have applied our best settings, just make sure to restart your emulator so the graphics drivers are loaded. With all of that out of the way, you can also go to controls, afterwards go to overlay where you guys can modify the gamepad overlay. So right here, as you guys can see, are the touch control overlay of VITA3K Android. I'll just go ahead and set it according to my position, and that's about it in terms of the best settings for VITA3K Android. To start off, we'll be emulating our first game, which is going to be God of War Collections, and immediately you guys will be able to see the game has successfully started within few seconds. Sony Computer Entertainment. At the top left corner, you'll also be able to see an FPS bar, and here we go, we can choose the game that we want to play, either God of War 1 or God of War 2. Let's go with God of War 2, and everything is running pretty smooth. So alright, the game has restarted and now God of War 2 will start. And there we go guys, God of War 2 has successfully started inside of the PS Vita emulator. Let's select our difficulty afterwards. You guys will be able to see the graphics are looking very sharp and very accurate. There are no graphical issues, and that's why this game had a green icon. And here we go guys, now that the game has actually started, you'll be able to see that it is running at very smooth 60 FPS with no graphical issues at all, and that too at 1.5x graphics resolution, not the default 1x graphics. So the textures are looking pretty sharp. After using the recommended settings that I mentioned, your game will definitely run very smooth in the VITA3K Android as well. So yeah guys, let's move on towards our next game, which is going to be a bit more difficult to emulate. It is going to be the Uncharted Golden Abyss. So let's tap on the start button and close God of War. This is the main benchmark game of VITA3K Android. If this game can run at 60 FPS, then you can expect all of the major games to also work at straight up 60 FPS. Previously, when I tested out the older versions of VITA3K Android, I remember this used to have a lot of graphical issues, and at the top left corner you'll still see some stuttering issues, but obviously nothing major. Let's start a new game and then tap on the yes button. Create a save data. Okay, saving complete. Here we go, everything is super fast. So the game begins. Let's skip the movie. And this is a problem with the on-screen touch controls. I can't really press that button, so I'll have to press back. Afterwards go back once again. Afterwards go to controls, overlay. Afterwards tap on modify gamepad overlay and bring the joystick control to right here, and now I'll be able to touch that button. And here we go, so the game begins. You guys can see Uncharted Golden Abyss has successfully started on our Android device, and my god, I have to say this has never been seen before. The game is running at butter smooth 60 FPS. I remember the last time when I tried out Uncharted game in the VITA3K emulator Android was about 9 to 10 months ago, so this is definitely something new. So there have been major updates throughout the time, and the performance has improved by quite a lot. Anyways, that's going to be it for today's video. Be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, turn on all notification as I upload similar videos on my channel. I'll see you guys next time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.